Hello and welcome. My name is Suzanne Silvermoon, the coordinator for the Seattle Kerala Ayurveda Academy. I'm talking today with Mamta Landerman, who's a clinical Ayurveda and Panchakarma specialist. She was the founding president and a board of directors of California Association of Ayurvedic Medicine and has been practicing and teaching Ayurveda and transformational work for the last 23 years. Welcome, Mamta.
Thank you, Suzanne.
We're here today to talk about your upcoming course in Jyotish, Vedic Astrology. So I'd like to hear from you, what is Jyotish?
Well, Jyotish literally is the study of light, the luminaries in the sky, the planets. Human beings are dependent on light. All life on Earth, it grows and decays with the changing of light. Seasons vary, climate changes, life gets impacted by the movement of the sun. It dictates our activities. We respond to the sun, and we also respond to the moon. Hospitals will tell you that there are more accidents on the full moon, more babies are delivered on the full moon. Our tides depend on the magnetic pull of the moon on water. Now, we as human beings are 70% water. The moon has a profound effect on our bodies as well as on our emotional mind, which can rise and ebb responding to the moon. And then, moreover, when the ancient scholars defined what we are made of, they said that the common fabric in the world is the 5 elements. All things are either in a solid state, which is earth, or liquid, which is water, or in a transformative state, fire, or in a gaseous, that is air, or in a latent, unmanifest state, which we call ether. Now, the 5 main planets, which is Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, Venus, and Saturn, all have a relationship with these elements, and they affect them within us. The word loosely translated in English is planets, but the term in Sanskrit is graha. And graha means that which grasps. And that is why the sun and the moon, which also grasp with their magnetic influences, we call them grahas as well. There are 7 grahas, and then 2 of the nodes, the north and south nodes, which, where the sun's orbit and the moon's orbit cross, have a very strong effect of us. They're called Rahu Ketu. And there are no planets there, but there is a great pull over there. So in all, we have 9 grahas or graspers because they all affect us. So Jyotish is a very profound study that describes a human being as a microcosm of the macrocosm. Just as everything is evolving outside of us, so is it within us. And we bring a certain raw material within us in our lifetime. This consists of certain skills and talents that we will express into the world, as well as certain lessons that we will learn in life. And these exist within us in a kind of seed form. We call these karmic seeds. And just like the seeds in nature sprout in certain seasons, so do these seeds sprout at different times in our lives. And Jyotish is the study of this journey.
Wow, how fascinating. I wonder, in your opinion, why should people study Jyotish?
Well, if you are a student of one of the Vedic sciences, whether it is yoga or Ayurveda or Vastu or Jyotish, sooner or later you will bump up against the walls of one of the other sister sciences. This is because they all acknowledge one common principle called Kal, Desh, and Patra. Veda is not just a science, it is a living science. It has universal principles, but its meaning expands and applies uniquely according to Kal, which is time, whether it's used in the 6th century or are you using it now, whether it is used in India or the US, that is Desh, and Patra, which is the individual, who it applies to, which individual. Because you will find suddenly a person rises from pauper to a king, or falls ill suddenly, or changes their relationship. You find twins that are born supposedly at the same time have their destinies unfold uniquely. So Jyotish allows us a peek into our karmic bank account, so we can see what forces are going to be dominant at which time of our lives. You know, just as a surfer can catch the right wave and go way beyond what they could go on their own, similarly, if we are aware of what wave we are about to ride, we can better travel with it rather than crash and burn under its impact. So whether you are an Ayurveda practitioner or a yoga teacher, Jyotish will give you yet another point of view to counsel from. And as well, it also offers certain remedial measures that are of a more subtle form. It gives you insights into where in the subtle body lies the seed of their psyche or the manifestation of a particular attitude and how to transform it. They are life skills. Also, the capacity of the individual to deal with what comes into their life. We all have different capacities, and it gives you an insight into that.
Very, very fascinating and compelling, Mamta. Thank you. I know here in the U.S. that a lot of people are familiar with Western or European astrology. What is the difference between that and Jyotish?
Well, you know, Western and Eastern astrology have, at different moments in time, they've crossed over. So there was a mix of the two astrologies during the Greek civilization, during the Persian civilization, and some methods are common. However, you know, without getting into too technical terms, they calculate their charts differently. The unique thing about Jyotish is that their use of time is very unique. That points to what we call the Dasha system. You know, when a certain seed is going to unfold, both astrologies can tell you a lot about your different personalities. But when exactly things are going to happen, Jyotish has some amazing tools to point towards that. Also, its use of nakshatras, which is where the sky is divided into 27 different houses that the moon travels to, and those are called nakshatras. And in each month, it travels through that period. And this tells us a great deal about the personality traits that the person has come in with and their psychological profile unique to Jyotish.
Very unique. Wow. I'm curious, you've been at this a while. Can you give us an example of when Jyotish has either benefited you or perhaps a client that you've worked with?
Well, for me, it really helps me tremendously because when I can see what forces are working, whether they're forces of manifestation or forces of transformation, then, you know, I'm not so tied into just what is happening outside. I just know that, well, right now is my time to cook in a certain force and to transform it in my life, but that the transformation is happening slowly, whereas if I didn't have Jyotish with me, I would think nothing is happening. I'm not seeing the outer result. So it allows me to do an inner tracking. And then when I've worked with other clients, for example, there was a couple that came to me wanting to me to find a good date for them to get married. And that was their first consultation with me. But when I looked at their chart, I saw they were just not suitable for each other. And that was quite a challenge. And I don't ever make a decision for somebody, but I did tell them what some of the things they were dealing with in each other. And I think that really helped them clarify some things where they didn't go through with it and were really happy a little bit later. They gave themselves some time and then decided it was the wrong decision. Or there was another person who came for a reading, and wanted some insight because there was no communication with their family. But that's because through Jyotish, we were able to see what was happening, and also it was time for him to pour energy into the family rather than the other way around. And he got so much at peace with that it allowed him to work those forces in a very harmonious way instead of quibbling back and forth. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I'm really glad to hear that the couple were happy in the end. They getting married. That could have gone two ways, I imagine.
Yes, it could have. It could have.
If a person were to study Jyotish and include this in their toolkit of support, how could it be helpful in counseling?
I do Ayurveda, and sometimes with Jyotish, I'll get a comment like, wow, you just told me my life in 45 minutes. It's like you can cut through and look right into where a person's challenges are, or throw light into a uniqueness that they may not have tapped into. It gives you a beautiful global view, but also allows you to, like a telephoto lens, to zoom into some exact areas that people need to work on.
Well, that makes sense. That makes sense to just condense it down to what's really poignant in the moment, huh? Mamta, I'm curious about what your training is and your experience in Jyotish.
I've been involved in energetic healing in all kinds of ways for several years. And frankly, I got it in a meditation one time to do Ayurveda, and I was learning and practicing Ayurveda. And mine is a very energetic answer, I have to warn you, because, and what happened was I really felt guided, because I suddenly felt this light shining into me, and as I looked, I was feeling, this is Saturn. And then I felt a different ray of light, because, we are like dark crystals, and the planets have certain rays and certain frequencies and certain tones of their energy that light us up. And I just felt, oh my God, this is Mars. What? Now I have to study Jyotish? And strangely enough, just then there's a beautiful teacher coming into town called Heart to Full. And I did look into his class right away, and I just loved the methodical way and the depth which he taught. And this was around 2001, and ever since then I've been studying Jyotish.
Wow. It's almost like you energetically felt him coming to you as your teacher.
Yes, and I felt I was being called to do Jyotish for whatever reason. And I can tell you, I just absolutely have a passion for it.
Yes, I can hear it in your voice and all that you are explaining. As a practitioner in the U.S., what is the community like? Are they primarily Ayurvedic practitioners? Are they doctors with a specialty in Jyotish? I'm curious about the business end of things and how a Jyotish would perhaps market themselves.
Well, the practitioners are all across the board. Usually there have been some that have spilled over from doing Western astrology, and they found an additional depth in Eastern astrology, so they came across to study Vedic astrology. Others are people who were doing yoga or Ayurveda and felt called to look at through a bigger lens, a larger lens, and found astrology that way. And there is one aspect of Jyotish, which is medical astrology. So there are a lot of Ayurvedic practitioners now that are wanting to go into that aspect of Ayurveda, that aspect of Jyotish. But understand that you can't really get to that unless you know the fundamentals of Jyotish. It's like you can't become a specialist in medicine until you've taken all the prerequisites and understood general medicine. So what we're offering with this course is the level 1 workshop.
Got it. Yeah, that makes total sense. Yeah, you wouldn't want a doctor treating you that hadn't studied anatomy and physiology, right? You got to start with the basics.
That's right. You got it.
I'm curious too, Mamta, if one were to go ahead and take your course that you're offering through Kerala Ayurveda, what would one be able to do with that training?
What would one be able to do? Jyotish is a science and an art, and it needs time and dedication. It isn't your punch into the computer and get a little readout and read your Sunday paper with, oh, this is a good day or a bad day. However, it needs, like I said, it needs time and dedication, but Jyotish at every step of the way will give you a deeper understanding of your own life, your personality and circumstances, as well as your clients. So this is a level 1. I'm offering it in 4 weekends. And this will give you a strong foundation for future specialized study, whether you do it with me or with other teachers. It will allow you to understand charts in a basic way and follow along with what astrologers are pointing towards. And like all Vedic sciences, once you open this door, the study is alive and it is lifelong. Whether you take another class or not, that seed has sprouted in your journey with it, your journey sort of with a certain consciousness along it. And what we're doing is the reason, one of the special things that we're offering with this course is the first weekend, just so you can explore Jyotish. It's mandatory to take the first weekend in order to take the other 3 weekends, because really the course is 4 weekends. But if you want to find out whether Jyotish is for you or not, I would highly encourage you to come for the first weekend. And even if you decide not to go on for the others, you will have under your belt a good understanding of Jyotish, so that if you go to another astrologer, you'll know what they're talking, or you'll know whether you want to study it further, and you'll know how to frame questions and how to also approach your life from that lens.
Well, it sounds fascinating, Mamta. I truly appreciate you taking the time to talk with me today and share your wisdom and your experiences with Jyotish. And if any of you who are listening are interested in registering for this class, you can go to the website www.ayurvedaacademy.com and click on the Events tab to find the Introduction to Jyotish Vedic Astrology course and the certification course. Or you can click on the link below and register now. Thank you so much, Mamta.
Thanks, Suzanne. It's a pleasure.